His Excellency Dr. B.R. Mani, Director General, National Museum of New Delhi. His Excellency Amit Narang, Ambassador of India to the Sultanate of Oman. His Excellency Jamal Musavi, Secretary General, National Museum of Oman. His Excellency Syed Nuh, Chairman, Oman Historical Association. Sheikh Anil Kimji, Head of the Indian Community in Oman. Professor Calvin Allen, our esteemed speaker of the day. Esteemed members of the Mahajan community. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Very good evening to one and all. On behalf of Embassy of India, Muscat, it is my privilege to welcome you this evening to the 7th and final lecture of the landmark series From Mandvi to Muscat, Indian Community and the Shared History of India and Oman. Before we commence today's event, we would like to announce that prayer rooms are available behind the stage for Maghrib prayers. Those who wish to pray may kindly do so during the Maghrib prayer time. As we begin today's event, I kindly invite His Excellency Amit Narang, Ambassador of India to the Sultanate of Oman, to address the gathering.
Secretary General of the National Museum of Oman, His Excellency Jamal Al-Musavi, Chairman of the Oman Historical Association, His Excellency Syed Nuh Al-Busaidi, Director General of the National Museum of India, Dr. B.R. Mani ji, Head of the Hindu Mahajan community, Sheikh Anil Kimji ji, distinguished members of the Indian and Hindu Mahajan community, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, namaskar, assalamu alaikum, and Jai Shri Krishna. I am delighted indeed to extend a very warm welcome to you for the 7th and concluding lecture in our iconic lecture series From Mandvi to Muscat, Indian Community and the Shared History of India and Oman. I'm delighted that with today's event, we are completing a journey of 8 months. A journey of exploring and showcasing the rich history of the Indian community in Oman, and by doing so, bringing out the best of the India-Oman shared history and heritage. The idea for this lecture series stemmed from my interactions with many of the distinguished people present in the audience today. Thank you. I think we'll just let people settle down. The idea for this lecture series stemmed from my interactions with many of the distinguished people present in the hall today, who made me aware, since my arrival in Oman just over 2 years ago, of the rich tapestry of the history of the Indian community in Oman and its unique contributions to the development of the India-Oman bilateral relationship. As these discussions progressed, the idea of this lecture series also took shape. The idea was to bring together all the experts who have done work on this subject in an attempt to bring the public spotlight back on this unique diaspora history of India, collating the different perspectives and also thereby reinvigorating a renewed public interest in this history by the younger generation, both, I must add, Omani as well as Indian. The first lecture in this series was held in October last year, and it was inaugurated by our Minister of State for External Affairs, Shri V. Muralidharan ji. The endeavor thereafter, and I must admit it was a difficult endeavor. When the idea was broached, many of us thought it is a little daunting to do this, but the idea was to have one event every single month, and each of these events was structured in a way that there would be one academic presentation, followed by one family presentation, narrating the family history of some of the notable families of the Indian community. I must say this was a voluntary exercise for those who came forward. A little clarification here is also important since we are concluding this landmark journey. You see the title says Mandvi to Muscat. This is not about Mandvi, just as it is not about Muscat. This is just a title, an evocative way of framing this beautiful history. It is Mandvi to Muscat. It could have been Saurashtra to Sur, or Kutch to Khabura, or even for that matter, Maluha to Majan. The idea was really to capture in a brief, in a short, lyrical way, the beauty of this history. And I thought the depiction of Mandvi, where most of this journey started some 200-300 years ago, and Muscat, where it has concluded, where most of the community is residing, I thought it was a nice way of capturing the breadth and beauty of this journey. As we prepare to listen to Professor Calvin Allen, who has very graciously traveled all the way from the United States to be with us, and who is, of course, needs no introduction. He's a noted authority on the subject, and he will speak to us as the 7th speaker in the series. It is worthwhile to recall the journey so far. We have had 6 excellent academic presentations by Professor Rada Bhakar of Oman. He is not here with us today. Dr. Chaya Goswami, who traveled from India. Professor James Onley, who came from Sharjah. Mr. Swagat Pani, who came from US. Dr. Sandhya Rao Mehta, of course, who made an excellent presentation on the women history of the community. And last but not the least, Dr. Sanjeev Sanyal from the Prime Minister's Advisory Council in India. We have also seen most interesting presentations of family histories of the Hindu Mahajan community. We have heard excellent presentations about the Ratansi Purushottam family, the Khimji Ramdas family, the Naranji Hirji family, the Shah Nagardas family, the family of Dr. Akbar Rafe, and of course, the family of Mr. Munir Toprani. Today, we will hear the history of the Ved family, and we will also get a glimpse of the memories of his life by Dr. Muhammad Ali. Today, as a bonus episode, we will also get 2 additional presentations, one on the history of the Hindu temples in India by Shri Kiran Asharji, and one on the history of the Indian schools by Harshantu Bhai. Taken together, I firmly believe that the lecture series has made a meaningful contribution, not just to the understanding of the history of the Indian community, but has also enabled bringing the public spotlight back on this unique facet of diaspora history. In doing so, I believe that this initiative is firmly in line with the vision and actions of the Government of India under Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, which has taken as its mission a better and more sustained engagement with the Indian diaspora community all over the world. As we conclude the lecture series, it is my bounden duty to convey my grateful thanks to those who have helped make this initiative a great success. First and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to His Excellency Jamal Musawi, Secretary General of the National Museum of Oman, and His Excellency Sayyid Nuh Al-Busaidi, Chairman of the Oman Historical Association, for partnering with us on this project and for extending their full support. This initiative would not have been possible without the generous support, both moral and financial, from the Hindu Mahajan community, and I thank the community as a whole for their generous and wholehearted participation. I should like to particularly thank Sheikh Anil Khimji, Raju Bhai, and Shri Kiran Asharji for being ready supporters and partners for this project, helping us conceptualize and implement this project. We cannot but mention the peerless support of dear friend Vimal Purecha ji, Sandhya Rao Mehta ji, who are also, in a sense, in our editorial board, and all the other members of the community who have worked with us. Going forward, the lecture series ends today, but our work does not. We aim to compile all the excellent presentations made into papers, into a book. This book, Mandvi to Muscat, is already being prepared. A team is working on it, and with the grace of God, we hope to have a launch ceremony shortly in the future to launch this book, which will really be a culmination of this wonderful project and preserve this memory for posterity. Before I conclude, I also wanted to highlight another project, because as one project ends, another project has to begin. And this project is about digitization of the historical documents in possession of the Indian community in Oman. Many of you here have recorded histories of at least a century, if not several centuries. In the course of these years, there are lots of sanduk, band boxes, almiras lying in your homes, unopened, unexplored, with old bahikhatas, old letters, correspondences, flight tickets, old passports. These are documents that need to be preserved. Because a paper is perishable. If you don't preserve it, if you don't digitize it, it will not remain with you. And I believe that such a rich history of the community, Indian community in Oman, deserves to be preserved. And I'm very happy to inform this audience that we are partnering for this iconic project with the National Archives of India, which, as you know, is one of the largest archives in the world. We had the Director General of the National Archives of India here a few months ago, and he interacted with many of you, and he wholeheartedly extended his support. What we are going to do is, hopefully in the month of May, late May, we will undertake this as a one-time project. We are hiring a scanner. Upon the specifications given to us by the archives, we will have the scanner placed in the embassy. We will request each of the families to register with us. We will assign a specific time to each family. Please bring whatever documents you have, scan them in your presence, and take back your documents. Nobody will take your documents. We will only digitize it. One copy will go to the National Archives, and one copy will come back to you. I believe this will be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for, not just finding these papers. Sometimes we take these for granted, but also digitizing them for permanent memory of the future. I hope, just like for this project, the Hindu Mahajan community will always generously support, but I really expect every family to partner with us in terms of finding out these papers, bringing them to us for digitization. In conclusion, let me also thank the embassy team for working very hard on this project. Many of my colleagues will be very relieved after today that this is over. But as I said, we have other tasks lined up for them. Thank you very much, and I wish today's evening great deliberations. We look forward to the fantastic presentations that are going to come, and I do hope that this lecture series will make a very important contribution in preserving the history of the wonderful diaspora community in Oman. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to present a memento to all the speakers of today's event and our esteemed dignitaries. First, may I kindly request Professor Calvin Allen, our esteemed speaker of the day, to come to the stage to receive a token of appreciation from the ambassador. May I kindly request May I please request Mr. Harshendu Shah, who will be narrating the history of Indian schools later today, to come to the stage to receive a gesture of gratitude from the ambassador. May I now request Dr. P. Muhammad Ali, Pravasya Bharati Samman awardee, to come to the stage to receive a token of gratitude from the ambassador. May I now request Mr. Dharmin Rajendra Ved to come to the stage to receive a token of appreciation from the ambassador. May I please request Mr. Kiran Ashar, Pravasa Bharati Samman awardee, to come to the stage to receive a token of gratitude from the ambassador. To express our gratitude, I would also like to invite Sheikh Anil Kimji, head of the Hindu Mahajan community, to the stage to receive a token of appreciation from the ambassador. I would request His Excellency Syed Nuh Al Busaidi, Chairman of Historical Association of Oman, to come to the stage to receive a token of appreciation from the ambassador. May I now request His Excellency Jamal Musavi, Secretary General of the National Museum of Oman, to come to the stage to receive a token of appreciation from the ambassador. May I kindly request His Excellency Dr. B.R. Mani, Director General, National Museum, New Delhi, to come to the stage to receive a token of gratitude from the ambassador. Thank you. I kindly request the dignitaries to be seated. May I also request His Excellency the Ambassador, Sheikh Anil Kimji, His Excellency Dr. B.R. Mani, and His Excellency Jamal Musavi to remain on the stage. His Excellency Jamal Musavi, kindly remain on the stage. The Hindu Mahajan community would like to felicitate His Excellency Dr. B.R. Mani, a renowned archaeologist and the Director General of National Museum of India. May I kindly request Sheikh Anil Kimji to felicitate His Excellency Dr. B.R. Mani. I kindly request His Excellency Dr. B.R. Mani to hand over a token of gratitude to His Excellency Jamal Musavi. May I also request His Excellency Dr. B.R. Mani to hand over a token of gratitude to Sheikh Anil Kimji. Thank you, Excellencies. Step into a world of wonder as the talented primary students of Indian school Al-Wadi Al-Kabir take you through the enchanting realm of Arabian culture. Coming up on stage is Salami Salami, a vibrant welcome.
سلامي لكم واحترامي ومع أمنياتي لكم يسمو يتعالى كن أنت تزداد جمالا كن أنت تزداد جمالا لا 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 أتقبلهم الناس لست أقلدهم إلا بما يرضيني كي أرضيني سأكون أنا مثلي تماما هذا أنا فقناعتي تكفيني ذاك يقيني لا 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 نحتاج المال كي نزداد جمالا جوهرنا هنا في القلب تلالا لا لا نرضي الناس بما لا نرضاه لنا حالا ذاك جمالنا يسمو يتعالى كن أنت تزداد جمالا
Thank you, children, for the wonderful performance. Our esteemed speaker of the day, Professor Calvin Allen, will be sharing his insightful views on the topic from Mandvi and beyond to Muscat and beyond, some closing observations. Professor Calvin Allen is a specialist on the Arabian Gulf region, and his areas of research spread over the history and politics of the Sultanate of Oman, with emphasis on the 19th to 21st centuries and special interest in the Indian merchant community in Muscat. Professor Calvin Allen has been awarded the National Endowments for Humanities Fellow, Fulbright Fellow, Distinguished Faculty Award by College of Osaka in 1998. Professor Calvin has published several articles and books on Oman. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I kindly invite Professor Calvin Allen to deliver the lecture.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and especially my friends, and there are many of you here in the audience tonight. Welcome, Assalamu alaikum, Jai Shri Krishna. I wish to thank His Excellency Ambassador Naran for his invitation to close this lecture series. My thanks as well to the Mahajan and everyone else who has been involved in this project. I've had the pleasure of being able to watch all of the programs as they were streamed live. And so I got to participate even though I was sitting at home in Virginia, and got to enjoy all of my colleagues and their presentations for the lecture series. I especially want to thank the Mahajan for their generous support for this. I came here from the United States and I have been treated very, very well, and I appreciate that, so thank you. I also want to take this opportunity. I've been coming to Oman now for almost 50 years. I came the first time in 1976, and over that time I have developed many friends, but I've also had many supporters and patrons, and I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank several of them. First, the late Syed Faisal bin Ali, who was the Minister of National Heritage and really made it possible for me to come here the first time in 1976. He sponsored me and supported my research and became a very, very good friend and supporter. I also want to thank the late Ranchadas Alalji Ratansi Prashodam, who in many ways defined my academic career. When I came here in 1976, it was to write a doctoral dissertation. I can't remember what the original topic was to be, but I started meeting with many of the Banyan merchants here and changed the whole focus of my work. And one day I'm sitting talking to Baiji, and he has one of his workers bring in 2 boxes full of paper. Well, I'm a historian, and paper is gold. And so here were all of these documents about Ratunsi Purushottam's business operations in the late 19th and early 20th century. No one had seen them. I had a whole new project, and it was amazing. And I want to double the ambassador's request that people find those documents, reproduce those documents, save those documents. They are extremely important. And add that, I started writing 50 years ago, and 50 years from now, someone else is going to be writing, and they're going to be writing about right now. And so please, collect that material. It is amazing stuff. And then I also want to thank Kanakshi Gokuldas Kimji and the Kimji family. Again, very strong supporters of my work, and we spent a year on and off sitting with Kanakshi, collecting his oral traditions again, and those oral traditions are extremely important. And sharing the whole history of Kimji Ramdas. So my thanks to Kanakshi. And then finally, I want to thank my dear friends, Vimal, Nina, and Drew. They've shared their home, they've shared their time, they've fed me, and they have been wonderful friends to me ever since I first started coming to Oman in 1976. So thank you to the Parecha family. Now, I could probably spend the whole rest of my time thanking everybody else that I should be thanking. Thank you. I'm extremely honored and humbled to stand before you, although I must confess I got a fair amount of anxiety as an American presuming to be an expert on the Indian community in Oman. I'm reminded many years ago, I served as the director of our graduate program at my university, and one of my jobs was to advise students on their dissertations. And so I had an Indian student come into my office. I said, okay, what are you planning to write your dissertation on? He says, I'm going to write it about the American West. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, what's this Indian kid thinking that he's going to write about the American West? And then it suddenly hit me, Cal, you write about Indians in Oman. So suddenly came to my senses, and the young man ended up writing a dissertation about American Indians, and it was excellent. And it gave a whole kind of perspective on the topic that an American student wouldn't have had. So I hope that you'll kind of accept a Gora perspective on your history. Back in December 2021, I delivered a lecture at the Indian Embassy that I thought was going to be my last lecture on the Indian community in Oman. I've been retired for 9 years. I really am not active in research, but I wanted to make what I thought was going to be my last trip. And that lecture focused on how 2 prominent members of the community, Ratunsi Purushottam and Gokuldas Kimji, had expanded India-Oman trade beyond the Indian diaspora. There's this kind of idea among Western historians in particular that, oh, Indians trade with other Indians. And more specifically, Kutchibanians trade with other Kutchibanians. Well, I don't have to tell you. I mean, this is nonsense. And so I wanted to put this into an academic context so that my colleagues would have a better understanding of all of this. So I gave the lecture, and then this lecture series came up on Indian families in Oman, and I get an invitation to come and deliver the last lecture. I'm thinking, what am I going to talk about? I gave my last lecture. What am I going to say? Don't worry. Give a professor a microphone, and 30 minutes, you're covered. So what I propose to take my time this evening doing is giving some closing observations on the topic of Indian communities in Oman and this kind of long shared history of India and Oman. And based on my own research, my research really specializes in the 19th and early 20th century, but I also want to draw on all of the wonderful lectures that came before, because I learned a great deal from listening to my colleagues talk about this long history between India and Oman. Now, I again want to thank the ambassador for pointing out on several occasions, and I think he did it at every one, that the title of the lecture series from Mandvi to Muscat is really not to be taken literally. And as the series has pointed out, Omanis of South Asian heritage come from the length and breadth of the subcontinent, from Baluchistan, Sindh, Kutch on the western side, Gujarat over on the western side, over to Orissa. We heard the story of the doctor who had come here in the 1950s from Orissa, to Bengal on the eastern side of the subcontinent, from Punjab in the north to Kerala in the south, and including Sri Lanka. So we're not just talking Kutch Mandvi, we're talking about all of India. They've been known by hundreds of different names: Banyans, Lawati, Baluchi, Zidgali, Surti, Sambara, Kumbara, Mimon, Khatri, Lohar, Wada, Keralites, lots of others, and I apologize to all the people whose names I didn't mention here. But they've also been known as Indian, and I think this is very important, they've also been known as Omani. All have made significant contributions to Oman, and all have made Oman their home. It's also important to remember changes that occur throughout history. Sanjeev Sanyal, for example, informed us that the coastline of India doesn't look anything today like it looked 5,000 years ago. There are rivers, the Saraswati, that have disappeared. So physical geography changes over time. Dr. Redabakar explained that names like Oman, even India, are relatively modern or recent. You know, they didn't exist 1,000 years ago. Even Muscat can refer to different people in different places. I know when I have students occasionally, I'll meet somebody and I ask them, where are you from? And they'll say Muscat. And I go, okay, now Muscat to me means basically the town of Muscat. I say, okay, so what part of Muscat? Oh, Bosher. Oh, okay, good. So anyway, so these names of places change over time. And I want to thank Dr. Sandhya. Dr. Sandhya, you're here, for reminding us that history includes women. And that hasn't always been the case. And I want to mention one other thing that changes over time, and that's the kind of terms we use to describe people. And so you're all familiar with the term Khoja, okay? And in the Omani context, that generally refers to the Muslim religious community from which the Lawatia here in Oman originate. But the term historically has had very different meanings, and that is that it basically was used as a term of respect. Very similar to, say, Set, the title for merchants, Shri, the Arabic term Sayyid, the term Sir. So it was a term of respect. And so, for example, here in Oman, in Muscat, back in the 19th century, there were two British native agents, representatives of the East India Company, and they were Khoja Reuben and Khoja Haiskal. Now, you might think, oh, here are some representatives from the Lawatia community. No, they weren't. They were both Jewish. So these terms we use sometimes change. All right, so let me finally get to the topic here. So when did this kind of figurative journey from Mandvi to Muscat begin? So here we have a kind of map of the trade routes from ancient times. And you can see they spread all over Western India up into Iraq, Magan, which was the ancient name for Oman. And several papers have described the earliest contacts between ancient Harappan civilization, what is today Sindh in Pakistan and parts of Gujarat in India, and Magan, Oman. The archaeological evidence gathered over the past 40 years has confirmed these contacts with Indian artifacts from both northern Oman, and these are artifacts from Salut up near Nizwa, and you can see a comb from Harappa, a stamp from a Harappan cylinder seal, and this little glob of clay here is actually a bird. Now, archaeologists typically are inclined to say, well, this has some ritual significance, but it might as likely have been a child's toy. So, but these are Indian. And then also from the port of Sumharam in Dhofar, again, these are 2nd century BCE up to the 8th century, and again, from India, some potsherd with some Indian script on it, a dancing figurine, and a South Asian style cooking pot. And point out that this script has actually been deciphered, and the archaeologist Sylvia Lishi tells us that this says Kiran. So, who was the first Indian in Oman? Kiran. So, what this points to is that these aren't necessarily the kind of objects that just kind of show up as a result of trade. It's not like you have merchants sailing through Sumharan or passing through Salut and trading goods. These are personal items. These are things that people have in their home. And so what they tell us is there are Indians living in Oman in the third millennium BC, 5,000 years ago. Also want to point out that many of these objects come from South India. So that, again, to emphasize this idea that we tend to think of the contact between Western India, between Sindh, Kutch, Gujarat. But even back 5,000 years ago, there is widespread contact with nearly all of India. Once we enter the Islamic era, and medieval Oman, the archaeological information, evidence from, again, El Balid, the port in Dhofar, and elsewhere, continues to provide evidence of Indian settlement. I mean, it starts in 5,000 years ago, and it just continues. It doesn't end. We also have this interesting tradition of Cheraman Perumal Rama. This was mentioned in Dr. James Onley's talk, about how this king of Kerala had become interested in the stories of the Prophet Muhammad that he was hearing, decides to make the pilgrimage to Mecca. He converts to Islam. He's given the name Taqiyuddin Abdul Rahman as-Samiri, and given that name by the Prophet Muhammad. And so he lived in Mecca for a time, decided to return to India, but he died and was buried in Dhofar. And his tomb, the tomb of al-Samiri, still stands there. And on the left, you have a picture of the tomb. Also, his followers founded perhaps the second oldest mosque in the world, certainly the oldest mosque, or at least reported to be the oldest mosque in India. Now, the interesting thing is he is venerated as a saint in Dhofar in kind of the local tradition. And he is credited with bringing the monsoon to Dhofar, to bringing rainfall to Dhofar. So here we have this Indian, a Keralite, who becomes a very important figure within Omani tradition. Now, the story has lots of different versions. It dates from the time of the Prophet up to the 12th century. But again, what it reveals is the kind of strong ties that have existed between southern India and Oman. Evidence of Indian contact with Oman in later medieval periods comes through a variety of archaeological artifacts, but the case for residents is a bit more difficult. We do have the Indian artifacts that are found in almost all archaeological sites. The British government representative here in Muscat, S.B. Miles, visited Kalhat visited Kalhat in 1874 and reported that his Arab guide had pointed out to him, there's where the Hindu temple in Kalhat was. And Kalhat was the kind of center of Omani trade from the 10th to the 15th century, prior to the Portuguese occupation. And there is this artifact currently housed in the Oman National Museum, that a carving of a lotus blossom. And this kind of gives some confirmation to Miles's story about the temple. Now, archaeological excavation in Kalhat has only recently started. It's been the last 6 or 7 years. They haven't yet discovered the site of the temple. But as work continues, expectation is that they will. Once we get to the Portuguese period, we begin to have more written accounts. We have written accounts from Europe, we have written accounts from Indian sources, and we also have written accounts from Arab sources. Everybody agrees that there are banyans, called banyans, in the Omani ports when the Portuguese arrived in 1507. One of my important sources on the history of the community is Dungarsi Dharamsi Sampat, who was an Indian Bhatia historian who traveled all over the Indian Ocean region collecting oral traditions about the various Bhatia communities throughout the area. And he informs us that most of these merchants here in Muscat in particular were Tatiyas, Bhatiyas from Sindh. And Muscat had strong ties with the Indus River port of, obviously, Tata. And other Omani sources also confirm that in Muscat, worshippers of the cow were serving as agents for the Portuguese. Several of our speakers have also related the role that a Banyan Narotam played in the expulsion of the Portuguese by Imam Sultan bin Saif al-Arabi in 1650. That account comes from an Omani historian named Ibn Rozaik. But there's another version. And that version comes from another Omani historian, a very prominent, famous historian named Abdullah bin Hamid al-Salami. And his version says there are actually two Banyans that were involved in this. And they were Narotam, but also Sakabila, or Sakbila, could be pronounced either way. And according to Salami, it was actually, Sakabila had two daughters, and it was actually one of Sakabila's daughters that was the object of the Portuguese captain's desires, and he had given Sakabila a dowry to marry this daughter, and it's the Narotam story, but Sakabila said, I don't think so. And as he told the Portuguese captain, you don't exchange your daughters with us, you know, we're not giving our daughters in marriage to you. And so they then worked with the Omanis to liberate Muscat. So we still have this story, though, of this Banyan participation in the liberation of Muscat. And now, as a reward for their help, the Banyans were exempted from paying the jizya. Jizya is a tax that non-Muslims pay, basically for protection. But Hindus were given a waiver in that. And then they were also given permission to build their first temple in Muscat. And Kieran is going to talk about temples, so, or no, yeah, Kieran's going to. So I won't talk about the temple. But we do have this early date for a construction of a temple here in Muscat. Now, Drs. Bakker and Chaya Goswami have already described Indian commercial activities in the kind of post-Portuguese period. Unfortunately, our sources don't give us a whole lot of detail about Indians in Oman under the Araba. We do know that during the 1720s, the Banyans of Muscat helped the Araba. The Araba were very active in commercial activities, and especially in expanding business interests to East Africa. And we know that the Banyan community here in Muscat gave them 3 ships to help in this commercial expansion. But we don't know what kind of Banyans they were. The assumption is they were from Sindh, because that's the group that was dominating during this time. But we don't have any documents saying this is where they were from. Japanese historian Tadashi Fukada has argued that the Banyans in Muscat actually played a kind of minor role during trade with the Araba, mostly because the Araba wanted to control it themselves. They didn't want any partners, and so it's a time when it was very difficult for the Indian community to be actively involved in this trade. And also during the Araba period, there's much greater emphasis put on trade with South India. This is a time when the trade in horses becomes particularly important, and South India was a very big market for that. We also know that the Arab were not disinclined to take military action against Banyan communities, especially in East Africa. They were competitors. So the Arab period is a difficult time for the Indian community. It's also clear that political conditions in, I'm getting behind on my slides. Come on. Here's a map showing, okay, Muscat over here on the left, and then Tata over all the way on the right. You can see it right down between Karachi and Hyderabad. We also know that this was a fairly difficult time in the Western Indian Ocean region in general that also served to retard Sindhi trade with Oman. Again, we talked about geography changing. And during this period, the Sindh River, or the Indus River changed course. And Tata had been a port town, and all of a sudden people wake up one morning and the river's now 3 miles away. That hurt their trade. Also a period of kind of political turmoil in Sindh under the Kalhora dynasty from 1701 to 1783. You've got some invasions from Persia, invasions from Afghanistan, the rise of the Talpur dynasty. All of this disrupts trade. You had the founding of Hyderabad in 1768, and it became kind of the focus of economic growth in Sindh during that time. So that also contributed to the demise of Tata. Meanwhile, other parts of the region, this is also the time when the rulers of Kutch begin actively encouraging the expansion of trade. We see this mostly with Rao Kengarji I, who founded the port of Mandvi in 1581. So we see Kutch beginning to become more actively involved in the trade of the Western Indian Ocean. And when Kengarji established the port, what did he do? He went to Sindh and set Topin to kind of organize his newly found port and begin the development of this trade. So, and then Kutch begins to become a kind of a place where Sindhis migrate. Both Khojas and Bhatiyas begin to move out of Sindh and into Kutch, escaping the kind of turmoil that's going on in Sindh. And then to kind of further aggravate the situation, Oman is also going through a period of political instability from 1720 until about 1750. There's a civil war within the Arab dynasty. There's a Persian invasion, and things don't get cleaned up until 1749 when Ahmed bin Said is elected, al-Busaidi is elected imam and establishes order in the country. So by the second half of the 18th century, the political situation in Oman has kind of been settled with the establishment of the al-Busaid dynasty. There's an interesting popular legend that I want to share with you. I went to Mandvi in May of 1977 and talked to a lot of people. And while I was there, and I can't remember who told me the story, but the story was that when Ahmed bin Said was coming to power, the Persians were in occupation of Muscat. And so one of the first things they had to do was get the Persians out. And so I'm in Mandvi, and I'm told this story. Well, you know how that happened? And I said, well, I think I do, but I'm open to suggestions. He said, well, there was a Banyan merchant named Shabika, who the Persian governor wanted to marry his daughter. And he didn't want his daughter to be married to the Persian governor, so he worked with Ahmed bin Said to help expel the Persians. And in 1748, due to the help of Shabika, Oman is liberated from, or Muscat is liberated from the Persians. It's an interesting story, but it's one that got a little confused. Because I think if you talk to members of the Shabika family has been here a long time. Their own family tradition is, from interviews I did in 1976 and 77, was that the family came here in the 1790s, which is fairly early. And the name Shabika is not, remember back a couple of slides, Subkila. No. Shabika was actually a rifle, a type of rifle that the company sold in the late 19th, early 20th century. But it's a very interesting story. And for me, what it does is to kind of confirm the role that now the Kutchi Banyans are playing in Omani affairs. You know, Narotam, Sakabila, were Sindhi. But now the Tatiyas are gone, and now the Kutchi Bhatiyas are beginning to move in. And so, and here you have the kind of personification of that change. Now, when did this change occur? Well, again, it's difficult to kind of pinpoint it. We can assume that merchants from Kutch have been coming to Oman, to Muscat, to Sohar, to Kalhat, to Sumharam, to Ablid for thousands of years. There's no reason not to think that, you know. But for the most part, these were merchants who were coming to trade. They're not coming to settle down. They're not coming to build community. So my assumption is that Kutchi merchants, like merchants from all over India, have been coming here for 5,000 years. If they're coming from Mandvi to settle, it has to be after 1581, because there is no Mandvi before 1581. And it seems that, based again on kind of circumstantial evidence, which is really all we have to go on, that whole process of settlement began during the reign of Imam Said bin Sultan, or Ahmed bin Said Abu Saidi. So probably the 1750s, the 1760s, that the Kutchis start to become well established in Muscat. Now, our Arabic sources, what did I do? I skipped a part. Oh, I did. I skipped a big part. No. What else is going on during the reign of... no, my slides got out of order. Our Arabic sources also provide documentation on another group of immigrants from India, and that's the Khojas. Ibn Rizaiq, again, the Arabic source I mentioned earlier, informs us that when Imam Ahmed bin Said lived in Rustak, he didn't live in Muscat, and he had agents in Muscat to handle his economic affairs. And what Ibn Rizaiq tells us is he would come to Muscat every year just to check on the books. And when he came, he was met by a delegation of Luwatia. And they're sometimes referred to as Hyderabadi. Again, gives us a kind of indication of Sindhi origins. And so by at least the reign of Ahmed bin Said, so again, this period 1750s, 1760s, the Luwatia had been settled in Oman, settled in Matra, probably, I don't think there's any doubt, in what was the old square Portuguese fort in Matra. That simply becomes Sor Luwatia. So again, gives us some good, strong evidence on when that community became established. Now, both Imam Ahmed and his son and successor, Imam Said bin Ahmed, were interested in commerce, but unlike the Araba, they weren't directly involved in their activities. And they had agents in Muscat who managed their economic affairs. We do know that Imam Ahmed was very, very favorable toward the Banyans. And during his reign, the community was granted permission to construct the second temple. So we have our second temple during the imamate of Ahmed bin Said Abu Saidi. This one was a Pushtimargi Haveli, and again, Kieran will talk about these. For me, the temple, aside from its religious significance, again, gives us some indication of some change that's going on here. Um, it's a Pushti Margi temple. Now, we do know that Sindhi Bhattis are also followers of Vallabhacharya, but for me, it gives another bit of evidence that we have Kutchis now kind of having replaced the Sindhi community. This also, again, some events going on in Kutch, because we also have further development of shipbuilding in Kutch under Rao Gaji II, who was responsible for developing the whole Mandvi shipbuilding industry. Now, Imam Sayyid, Ahmed bin Sayyid, and his successor, Sayyid bin Ahmed, also, here we go, were interested in trade with South India, and there's an especially active trade with Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan actually opened a warehouse in Muscat during the 1780s, so again, strengthened that relationship between Oman and southern India. Here we have some really interesting documentation related to Tipu Sultan, because he saved all of his documents, his letters, and they've been published. And so we have accounts of letters that he wrote to the Imam of Muscat, talking about trade, again, especially interested in horses. Also under Sayyid Hamid bin Sayyid, who ruled from 1786 to 1792, we have an opening of a direct trade link with Afghanistan via the Indus River. And again, it was a direct link, and so it kind of cut out the middlemen, again, hurting those Sindhi merchants. Anyway, by 1800, Kutchi Banyans are firmly established in Muscat. Sayyid Sultan bin Ahmed's customs farmer, and as Dr. Redda explained, the customs farmer was the treasurer for the state. But the farmer in 1800 was a Kutchi Banyan named Malji. By the end of the 19th century, perhaps maybe a little bit earlier, Sampat tells us that there were only 2 Tatia families remaining in Muscat, and most of those were descendants of the Visama Damodaras family, and I think they're still here in Muscat. Now, those contacts didn't end completely. There are still Sindhis that come, and this is demonstrated by the arrival of Lakshmadas Theriaved Lakhu, whose family came in the early 20th century. So even though the Kutchi Banyan community had become more firmly established, those contacts with Sindh hadn't completely ended. The partnership between Kutch and Muscat grew most notably under Sayyid Said bin Sultan, one of the great rulers of Oman, ruled from 1806 to 1856, and his Kutchi counterpart, Maharao Desalji II. And there are lots of stories relate how Sayyid Said requested of Maharao Desalji that he send artisans to Oman to help in the economic development of the country. And Desalji responded by ordering Sonara, Kumbara, Miman, Khojas, Kutris, Laharis, Wadids, and Bhatiyas from the city of Kathara, that's Abdassa, it's about 35 miles northwest of Mandvi, to come to Oman. And they did. So we have the growth of the community. It's also when we begin to hear about specific families, most notably the Bhimani and the Toprani families, who in addition to their business interest in Oman are mentioned as supporting the efforts of Sayyid bin Sultan in expanding his territories in East Africa and Zanzibar. British archives tell us that the tax farmer from 1838 to 1843 was Hirji Kasoji from Mandvi. He's succeeded by Gopalji Malji Bhimani, so the Bhimani family's name begins to show up. Interesting, though, that the customs farmer was not a kind of a monopoly of the Banyan, the Kutchi Banyans, because we do know that from 1833 to 1838, the customs farmer was a man named Salah bin Aljo Aluti. So Khojas are also part of that economic elite in the city of Muscat. Muscat wasn't the only destination of Kutchi Banyans. Several of the family speakers have talked about the ties between Indians and Sur. Sur was often kind of a first stopping place for many of the people coming to the community, coming to the area. Why Sur? Well, there's actually three reasons. First, Oman's principal export before oil was dried dates. And dried dates only went to India. And they were important in India. They are used in prasad in the temple. Slice them up, soak them in some milk, and they're prasad. They're also popular at weddings. They're hot. And so big market in India for kharak, dried dates. And now, kharak is produced all over Oman, but the best kharak comes from Sharqiya, down in eastern Oman. And Sur was an important port for the shipment of those dates, and continues to be until today. I mentioned I work on a project on Kimchi family, and Kanakshi took me out to the date packing facility, shipping kharak, dry dates, Sur, Badia is down in Sharqiya, still going off to India. So the dates are an important part of the commercial drive. Second, ties between Sur and East Africa historically were much stronger than those between Muscat and East Africa. And this was important to a lot of the Indian families because they also had ties in East Africa, in Zanzibar, Mombasa, Mozambique. And Sur gave them a little stronger connection than Muscat did. So that kind of was a pull mechanism to bring merchants to Sur. And then the third one, perhaps maybe the most important, was Sur was a lot freer port. What I mean by that is there wasn't a lot of government and foreign involvement. Muscat, you had the customs farmer. Muscat, you had the government. Muscat, you had the British. Not Sur. So things are, as we say in the United States, the Wild West down there. And so, that appealed to some people too. When Sayyid bin Sultan died in 1856, there was kind of a general decline in trade in Oman. This is a time when the rulers of Muscat are devoting greater attention to domestic political concerns. There's also kind of the ever-encroaching influence of the British Empire. Dr. Goswami already described in detail Banyan commercial and social activities during this period. So this is kind of almost the golden age, and again, that's my bias, this is the period I know best, the kind of golden age of the Banyan community, and all of these families, many of which are still here today. I've got a long list of names here. I'm going to skip them. But all of the families are getting involved, both on the Banyan side and also Loatia side. Get a slide. And it's very difficult to find pictures of people from the 19th century, but I mean, here are again just a few of the prominent merchants: Ratansi Purushottam, Kimji Ramdas, Luati Muhammad Fadl from W.J. Tao Company, Danji Morarji Shavika, and dozens of others. And they're all playing a role in kind of this globalization of Omani products. So dates, you've got dates going to India, dry dates, wet dates going to the United States. Sonia, just to remind everybody, there are also women in this community, and actually able to find a picture of a Banyan woman, and again, even identified in the photo, a Khoja lady from the 19th century. a map of Muscat, not specifically during this time, but gives you some idea of where all of this business is going on. You can see, it's difficult to see, but Beit Ratunsi, if you can see that, and you can see the two temples, Beit El Pir and Mabad El Banyan, right kind of the center of the photo. But this was a time, again, when globalization is occurring, dates were an important part of it, date packing done mostly by women, and kind of a specialized market. Americans, I'm visiting my friend Vimal, and first question is, all right, Cal, you want to use your fingers? Americans aren't real good on eating with their hands. And Americans don't really like sticky dates. So anyway, so it was a very specialized market, and it was specifically fard dates. Fard dates, now fard dates are popular, but back in the 19th century, fard dates were kind of thick-skinned, they're a little dry. They're not the best of Omani dates. We love them. And so, but they would be packed in these little boxes and shipped off to the United States. But you have other goods too. Limes, dried limes become a big market. Dried fish, especially going to Europe where they were used as fertilizer. That was especially of the Lawati community. And as a part of this, you have all of these global contacts that are beginning to be developed and introducing Western products into Oman. So while the Indians are playing a major role here in Muscat's economic affairs, there's another part of Oman that also is seeing an Indian impact, and that's again down in Dhofar. And this brings up the story of Sayyid Fadl bin Alawi, who was actually the ruler of Dhofar for 3 years back in the 19th century. Sayyid Fadl was actually Hadrami from Yemen. His father had moved to Kerala. And again, kind of, James only brought this topic up of, there's two-way movement here. It's not just all Indians coming to Oman. There are also Arab Omanis going to India. Nobody's working on it. Any historians out there, please, start working on this side of things. It's interesting and it'd be good to know about it. And Sayyid Alawi is an example of that. He migrated to Kerala, but his son Fadl was born in Kerala. He made the pilgrimage to Mecca to study Islam, and again, they're Sayyid. They're a holy family. And Fadl went to Mecca, studied Islam, went back to India, and got himself in trouble. Got charged by the British with instigating a series of anti-colonial uprisings that are known collectively as the Mopla uprising. So in 1852, the British kicked him out of India, sent him off to Arabia, said, go home. He goes home. But in 1876, the Mahra tribes around Salalah invited him to come to Dhofar to serve as their emir, as their ruler. And basically to kind of serve as a mediator to try and tamp down all of their tribal disputes that are going on. And this was kind of a traditional role for a Hadrami Sayyid in South Arabia. And so from 1876 to 1879, Sayyid Fadl bin Alawi is the ruler of Dhofar. Unfortunately for him, this kind of rule coincided with a drought and a famine in Dhofar, plus you had the British and the Omanis kind of intriguing to lessen his influence. And in 1879, the tribes actually revolted against him and kicked him out. And then Sultan Turki bin Said went down and reestablished Omani rule in the region. But again, you have this part of Indian and Omani history. Now, World War I marked the beginning of a long decline for the Omani economy. During that time, obviously, steamships aren't coming to Muscat. This greatly reduces the global exports. The regional Dow trade remains active, so you still got trade going on between India. There was a kind of resumption in trade in the 1920s, but then global forces start to have an impact. So things like dates, the export of dates to the United States, it died. Why did it die? We decided to grow our own dates. And we started buying them in North Africa where they were cheaper. So all that whole date exporting to the United States, gone. Dried fish died to Europe. Why? Chemical fertilizers replaced fish as fertilizers. So that part of the economy is hurt. Then you've got the Great Depression in the 1930s, followed by World War II. First part of the 20th century, bad time. And you would kind of expect that the Banyans would pack up and go home. You know, there's not a whole lot of business going on. Fine, we'll go home. They don't. Why don't they? Well, for starters, again, as I look at things, for nearly all of these families, this is home. There is no other home to go to. They've been established here for, in many cases, 200 years at least. Where are they going to go? This is especially the case for the Lawatiya, because legally they were Omanis. Now, the Banyans were British protected subjects, so had some kind of Indian citizenship, depending on where they were from. So the Lawatiya legally had nowhere to go, but the Banyans didn't really either. And so this is actually a time that kind of the Banyan social institutions, schools, and we're going to hear about the schools, the Mahajan, all become very, very strongly developed during this period. And during this time, you also have some other families that are starting to move in and becoming active in the trade and taking things in slightly different directions. And they're also, this is a time when strong relationships are beginning to be established between the Indian merchants and the Omani Arab merchants. And you hear a couple of our family speakers talked about partnerships with the Bahwans and Sur, or the Zuawis, and many, many other families. Again, this isn't anything new. This has always been going on. Indian merchants could not operate in Oman without cooperation with Omani population. But these ties become much stronger during this time. Then we get into the post-war era, and this is a time that needs a lot of study. You have the beginning of oil exports in 1967. You got modest development that comes in under Sultan Saeed bin Taimur. But just some random pictures from the 50s and 60s. But obviously, when do things begin to change? And that's with the beginning of the Omani Renaissance, launched by His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, which brought, as you all know, tremendous opportunities to all who lived in Oman. So we have the rapid development of the Omani economy after 1970. Rising water floats all boats. And so this was a time of expansion for everybody in the country. It did have some pressures even on the Banyan communities, and we see a lot of the families, they're growing, but some tensions begin to show up, and some of the families begin to kind of split apart, which means we just have more businesses. We also have a new generation of Indian merchants coming into the country. PNC Menon, it was Soba Limited, and we'll be hearing from Muhammad Ali later on. Joined lots of other Indians coming into the country, establishing new businesses. Little bit different model than was the case with the earlier establishment, in that a lot of this new generation comes in as in partnership immediately with Omanis and then develop those industries. But it also has to be said that these Indian contributions to the Omani Renaissance are not just limited to the large businesses, but thousands of Indians from all across the subcontinent, and I think important to say, from every level of society every level of society. It is a kind of a transformation of the community here in Oman. So I began this talking about kind of changes that occur. We talked about geographic changes, about words we use to describe people, place names, and basically changes in the relationship between Indians and here in Oman and Oman. And as I kind of wrap this up, to kind of summarize that relationship, what is that community? How does it relate here to Omani society? And again, how do people identify themselves? And to me, it's really pretty clear. For the first 4,800 years, there were hundreds of Indian communities, different Indian communities in Oman. Banyans, Lawatis, Baluchi, I can go on down the line. That's how people identified themselves within their individual group. So just one example, Naranji Hirji Set, that was the title, the businessman. But then as this relationship developed, especially when we get into the 20th century, a lot of people are starting to see themselves more as part of the Indian community. And my example here, Rai Bahadur. You can't get more Indian than a good title like Rai Bahadur. But Rai Bahadur Gokuldas Kimji. And again, it's an obvious kind of ploy on my part, but we have Naranji Hirji in his traditional Gujarati costume, and here we've got Gokuldas in his our image of an Indian costume. And then, after Sultan Qaboos, it's now Omani. It's not Set, it's not Rai Bahadur, Sheikh. It is an Omani community. Now, again, I'm an American, and all of us Americans love our hyphenated communities. When I talked to you last time, I talked about my Irish. I'm Irish American. Well, I'm not really. We found out when we did the genetic testing. But anyway, everybody's hyphenated, and we take pride in that. And I see exactly the same thing here. This kind of still great pride in that identity, but still Omani. And I think that just is going to increase even more. And what's important is that the role that community plays. Now, we spend a lot of time talking about economy. We spend a lot of time talking about merchants. We spend a lot of time talking about business. But that's not where it's at exclusively anymore. So we have, I'll use the hyphenated, Indian and Omanis, who are government ministers, who are undersecretaries, who are advisors, who are members of the Majlis Adawla, who are elected to the Majlis Ashura, who are ambassadors across the professional fields, medicine, law, social and cultural institutions, sports. Everywhere you look, at every level of this community, the Indian community is there. And speaking of sports, Pankaj, we should have had a lecture on cricket. But anyway, Indians contributing at every level, and all continuing to contribute to this long and glorious shared history of India and Oman. Thank you. Want to take questions or no?
Thank you, Professor Calvin, for the enlightening lecture. May I now welcome Mr. Harshendu Shah, Member, Board of Directors, Indian Schools of Oman, to present on the history of Indian schools in Oman.
Good evening. I know it's a tough act to follow in the steps of Professor Calvin, who has enlightened us and given us a great understanding by summing up. My talk has therefore got to be not only informative, but also interesting, and so I propose to make it very illustrative. My topic today is the role of education in Oman in the lives of the Indian expatriate community. Education is a very necessary need for all Indians as it contributes to the circumstances for their growth and well-being. Gujarati, and by this I include the people from Kutch and more so the people from Mandvi who settled in Muscat. That is the tagline for this lecture series, I understand. And today, by the way, also happens to be Gujarat Day. Those Gujaratis who were from the trader community and being close to the sea had started their business activities on the Oman coast and in the inner Gulf areas. They settled all along this Omani coast, but more so at Muscat. Initially, they were without their families, but soon in the early 1900s, they started bringing in their wives and children. And once the children were in Muscat, they felt the need to educate them. The first unorganized school, called the Keloni Mandal, was set up, you will not believe, in 1915 by the traders and conducted by them in the premises of traders such as Ratanshi Purushottam. This school continued off and on, depending upon the availability of a person who could teach. But this school ceased to operate in 1929. And I'm told that during this time, even Rajubhai's father had to study in a Lavati school as the Indian school was not operating. In the year 1930, there were approximately 700 to 800 of the Gujarati traders at Muscat. As a part of the Hindu revival movement in India, a Pandit, Sri Kanelal Mishra, visited Muscat in 1939 and met some traders and convinced them to set up a school. Sri Meghji Nancy agreed to start a school, and this was the birth of the Arya Keloni Mandal in Mathura on 2nd of July 1939. As a part, Sri Meghji Nancy agreed to start a school, and this was the birth of the Arya Keloni Mandal in Mathura on 2nd of July 1939. The school was initially managed by Sri Gokuldas Kimji, Sri Jairam Naranji Latwala, and Sri Vishrambhai Patel, and the teacher was Sri Jagdish Chandra, a graduate. They even set up a branch at Muscat with Sri Ibji Gopalji Asher as the teacher. What you see on the screen are screenshots of the children at that time. The first one is the one in Mathura, in Muscat, and the one on the far side is the one in Mathura, with the Mathura word also written on the chalkboard. On 1st February 1941, on the auspicious day of Vasant Panchami, the Hindu Mahajan Association was formally set up, and that body took on the financial responsibility of these schools, but its management was still by a few individuals. Initially, local persons were made teachers and the medium of instruction was Gujarati. However, Hindi and English were subjects even from the first standard. On 23rd November 1956, the members of the school committee requested the Mahajan to take on the full responsibility of the school. And later, on 5th May 1968, in a meeting chaired by Sri Chibbar from the Indian Embassy, Sri Gokaldas Kimji agreed to graciously donate rupees 1 lakh for a building, and the school was renamed as the Seth Sri Khimji Ramdas Arya Keravani Mandal. Initially, there were only classes up to the 4th standard and gradually increased to the 7th standard in 1968 up to the 9th. In 1976, Sri Bipinbhai Pandya, and in 1977, Mrs. Vasantiben Asher, who were both graduate-trained teachers, were appointed to the school with Sri Kanaksi Kimji as chairman. These are some of the early teachers of the school. Some of the names most of you would be able to recognize also and appreciate also. This is Naveen Bhai and Ramesh Bhai also, who happen to be good and prominent businessmen, but they were also teachers during this time. These are some of the past students of the school. Starting, you could see Kanak Bhai, Ajit Bhai, and a lot of the people you would recognize. Anil Bhai, you are on this also. Anita Bhabi, you are also here. These are all old photographs which I could access from some of the records of the Mahajan, and that's what. Oh, I see Ranjit Bhai also. He's here today. Raju Bhai, you are here. Satish Bhai. We also had from the City Garden family, Mr. Abdul Ahmed also. These are all who studied here. Okay. Parallelly, it was on 15th August 1975 that the Indian school Muscat was set up as the Indian Central School with English as the medium of instruction. Mrs. Zelia D'Souza was appointed the first principal and was followed by Mr. Leo Lobo and other principals, and now it is headed by Mr. Rakesh Joshi. It was in Muscat it was started in Muscat with 125 students and then later moved to Darset when the then Sultan, His Majesty Qaboos bin Said, gifted a plot of land for the school. This is a list of the presidents of the Indian School Muscat Management Committee and the principals of the school. Coming back to the first school, the Gujarati medium school changed its medium of instruction to English in 1979 to reflect the changing needs of its student profile. In 1980, the Muscat branch was closed due to a shifting of the population from Muscat, and only the Mathura school continued to operate. In June 1981, Sri Rasikbhai Joshi was appointed as the principal, who continued until 1983. With the increase in students in 1984, a house in Matra of the W.J. Towell family was rented, and the school was run in 2 shifts. In 1988, the school joined the mainstream schools operating under the laws of Oman and relocated itself in 1989 to Darset near the present temple and the churches, and was renamed as the Indian School Matra to continue the informal name it was earlier known as. Multiple locations were needed with the increase in the student numbers, and Mr. Subramaniam was appointed as the principal. However, there was a need to expand the number of classrooms and also a need to add a playing field. And so in 1992, with the gracious donation of a large plot of land by Sheikh Kanak Sikimji and his family, the school moved to Wadi Kabir. The members of the Mahajan community contributed handsomely with funds to construct a new building. These are plaques from the Wadi Kabir's main building itself. This is a list of the donors who have donated, starting from 50,000 from the Kimji Ramdas family, going all the way down up to 500 riyals also. So this was what was contributed by the community itself only. Soon the building outgrew this building. The school outgrew this building, and there was a need to add 2 more buildings to house the KG and the primary section, as well as the secondary section. Another building was donated by the Dharamsi family to house the nursery section. A large playground was also developed next to the second location, and which now you must have seen has been upgraded into a state-of-art sport and play area, courtesy Mr. Alkesh Joshi and his team. Mr. Leo Lobo was appointed as the principal, and now Mr. Rao heads it. At Sohar, Mrs. Sanchita Verma is the principal. A new initiative was mooted to offer an international curriculum to parents. So a new campus was built to offer the IGCSE courses, which compares to the best what is on offer in Oman. ISWK at present has a staff strength of 288 and a student strength of over 5,000 students. The international school has a staff strength of 66 and a student strength of over 500. Sohar has a staff strength of 188 and a student strength of over 3,000. As the student population kept on growing, more schools were needed. A school was set up in Salala in 1981, and in 1982, the HMA set up a school at Sohar. In 1989, 3 schools were set up in Ibri, Sur, and Khasab. In 1990, Gubra School was set up with the help of Mr. Muhammad Ali, which was followed by more schools being set up all over the country. Now, there are a total of 21 schools, with the smallest school at Masira having only 46 students, and the largest having 7,284 students. The total number of students is at present 44,901. The total number of teaching staff is 2,120, with non-teaching staff being 169 and 390 Omani staff being employed in the schools. In 1994, there was a need felt that some students needed care and special education, and hence a separate section was developed in the ISM premises, and that now caters to over 120 students. Wadi Kabir School and Mabila schools also have added this facility. On 15th of August 97, the ISM decided to offer its students who would pass out the CBSE exam an option to continue living and studying in Oman by setting up an IGNU center to offer the BCom and the BCA courses. This was spun off as the Indian Academy for Higher Education in 1999 and was located at the Jibru premises. The IHE also started offering courses of the Birla Institute of Technology from Ranchi. However, in 2002, the IHE was asked to cease operations by the government, and hence these were spun off into the Waljad School and the Glory Institute. The Embassy of India, represented by the ambassador, now Sri Amit Narang, has played a pivotal role in the development and the management of the schooling system in Oman. For the period from its setting up, the ambassador was always responsible to nominate all the committee members of the schools as well as the board of directors, which had been set up in 1993. Now, the ambassador nominates 3 persons to the BOD, and these nominees have been contributing very substantially to the school matters. The BOD ensures that there is a diversity among all the committee members by way of gender, religion, region, as well as professions and capabilities. The BOD comprises of well-balanced membership, reflecting the interests of the community, the promoters, and the Government of India. This has ensured that the schooling system is run smoothly and without any biases. This model has been appreciated by the Government of Oman as well as by the parents. I would want you to see, we've had the privilege of hosting members of the local community as well as visitors from India. The President of India, Sri Shankar Dayal Sharma, was a visitor. The Prime Ministers, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji and Sri I.K. Gujral also visited the schools and have appreciated the school system. We also have had the privilege of hosting members of the royal family and ministers, including His Majesty Sayyid Haitham bin Tariq. The first picture is, he's sitting in the center and with Kanak Bey and the other dignitaries, and that is Sayyid Haitham, His Majesty Haitham, presenting an award to the daughter of Vimal Bey. His connections go deep. Also, Sayyid Asad bin Tariq, who visited the school, as well as Sayyid Tuwaini bin Shihab. Finally, what has the schooling system achieved? For the students, it's a high quality of school education that prepares them for their life, further studies and vocations. For the parents, it's a life with their children in the house and without the tensions of living apart. For the teachers and staff, it's an avenue to fulfill their aspirations, to contribute their efforts toward developing well-rounded individuals. And for the Indians in Oman, to showcase India in all its glory and capabilities to the world. Another effect that the schooling system has created is the involvement of parents and professionals in the management of our schools. At any point of time, approximately 200 people contribute their time, ideas, and skill for the community, and over the years, thousands have been involved, and they've also learned a lot and developed themselves. Within the teaching community, the schools insist that all teachers are qualified, and they provide the qualifications and the required experience also. Our schools encourage the employment of Omani staff, and we at present employ more than 390 local staff. Along with this, a whole cadre of Omanis are involved in various activities of the schools. I have prepared this presentation with inputs from the Mahajan office, the BOD office, as well as contributors like Vimal Bhai, and from my own collection of photographs and recollections. Some of the pictures are very old and hence may not have been very clear. I hope that I could pass on to you a history of over 110 years in these few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Arshindu Bhai. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a short break. I kindly request the dignitaries to proceed for refreshment, followed by all our esteemed guests. Refreshments are served on the corners behind you. We will resume exactly in 10 minutes at 8:20. Since we are running short of time, we request everyone to assemble as soon as possible. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly settle down. We are starting the program now. Welcome back, everyone, as we continue today's event. Now, may I welcome Dr. Muhammad Ali, Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Awardee, to narrate his memories in Oman.
Okay. Good evening, friends. Thank you, Your Excellency, for including me on this program. So, Mandvi to Muscat, but I would like to start from Muscat to Kerala and then to China. Maybe, yeah. This is a very rare map. It is presented to Mohiddin's when Mohiddin was born. It's from Oman, one map where Oman and Kerala and the rest of the route is there. So Kerala was connected to Oman in the very ancient days. Harry, the next, can you put the next, Harry? Yes, this is where everything begins. This is where 1972 the Gulf War started. The man and the young boy on the trouser and the cap, that is me in 1972. That is the beginning of Gulf War. We had 5 workers. First one is somebody is recording anyway. First is a Palestinian and 4 Sikh Sardars. And the rest are Omani workforce. 5 people plus rest of the Omani workforce. That is where I have started. So I came to Oman, not Oman, I came to Dubai, 1970, armed with my 3-year experience in border roads in Mizoram, where the life was the most difficult, hostile facilities and hostile environment. So all I had was the strength to come across any situation, and that was the dream city at that time, to come to Dubai. Kerala is, those days, come legally or illegally, all these times, and I bought a ship in 1970 from Bombay, and the ship goes to Bombay, Karachi, Muscat, Dubai, then Kuwait and Basra. So, at that time, when any Indian goes out of the country, Government of India allowed 25 rupees to take out. 25 rupees in 1970 gave me $8.60. So that is the currency exchange rate. And gold price, 10 grams of gold was 112 rupees, because I sold my sister's gold to pay for my travel and the other expenditure to come to Oman in to Dubai in 1970. But I was lucky. In 1970, when I reached Dubai, a friend of mine, I got the next day job. Those days, getting job is still difficult in Dubai, but I was, came to Dubai. Here, I was the first, Sirdana was the first passenger ship to berth in the Dubai passenger terminal at that time. Dubai was reasonably developed, the Deira area, and there was this Abra, there was this telephone system, there is clock tower, and the markets. And I was working in a bank, it's called Bank of Oman, present day the Mashriq Bank. It was only one branch in the Murshid Bazaar. After 3 months, I changed my job and joined a company called Costain, which was building the the Dubai port as well as Dubai airports. That, the Hyatt Regency Hotel, that cornice wall, along that wall, you see, I was their night engineer, night surveyor, to align, that was my job. And the last job was to set up the Shindaga Tunnel in Dubai, 1972. And you know that in 1970 in Dubai, the currency was QDR, Qatar and Dubai Riyals. And those days, many of the Omanis come to bank or come to Dubai to buy their goods and other accessories. Dubai and Kerala, India, were the two places which was providing all the services to Oman at that time. That was the Shindaga Tunnel. I did the first setting up of that job. Then I met my present partner, Salim Said, in Dubai. He had a business of selling 7-Up and Canada Dry. I don't know, Canada Dry is not there, so they buy from Dubai and bring to Muscat and sell there. And Allah Rahma, Maqbul Hamid was doing Pepsi, and we all bring in a truck, and we have to run who reaches the tea shops to deliver, because there are very few shops in the Matra Souk. So, I arrived at airport. This is a Beit al-Falaj airstrip, where the present central bank is there. That was a so small airstrip that was 2 flights from Dubai to Muscat at that time. That is the airport. Whenever the flight comes, that is the scene, and this is how the 1972, the airport And it's a small aircraft, 26 passengers, 2 flights a week. Okay, and at that time in Oman there was 2 schools, 2 hospitals, and very little. The powerhouse at the Riyadh, the powerhouse, the other powerhouses came later, but Riyadh powerhouse and road from Beit al-Falaj to Matra, and this is there is no running water. This is the facility, and the Riyadh powerhouse, a small powerhouse, that is the road from Matra to Muscat. So then we won the job. These are some of the roads to the Muscat, very steep road, concrete road, total 8 kilometers of the road. So we got our first job to construct Wali's house in Sur. That time there was no big facilities. By the way, the Public Work Department was established by secondment of CPWD, and A.C. Mukherjee was the director, and he established the Public Works Department in Oman, and he and his team, and we got the first job, and that is the picture of the first job we are doing. And unfortunately, when we started this job, my partner had to be away, and I was left alone, and I did not know, and the friends and all were distancing from me, and I don't know what to do. At that time, there is very little development. The biggest development here was the Talib building in the Matra. I still stand tall there. Talib building was the only building where all the offices were housed there. Even the clinics, the consulate, even the bank, even the barber shop, this building is still there and is still very active. And most of the businesses, Oman's Matra is a commercial activity. The Bania community was in the souk area, and this was the new center where almost all the building has started from here. And all the Omani contractors, or even Dr. Zawawi's office was there, even Dr. Rayami's clinic was there, BBME was there, all the banks and everything was there. And there were a Matra hotel with 20 rooms, and Al-Falaj hotel with 40 rooms, all in porta cabins. That was the Mujammal Wazarat, that is the ministry complex building, was under construction, and that was commissioned in 1973, and which housed all the government ministries. And that was in 1973. That's the building, and Rui was non-existent. There was no Rui. Rui was not at all there in the picture. It was Beit al-Falaj, Matra, Muscat. Rui came 1974, I think. All 74, and the greater Matra region has developed. Yeah, that. So, of course, the Oman, this is the Oman's name has changed. It was Muscat and an Oman, and then it becomes Sultanate of Oman. And to cross the interior, to go to the interior, we needed a pass at that time. And that is issued by the Ministry of Interior, because it was called Muscat and Oman, and the Muscat area, if you to leave, you needed the pass. Local contractors here, there, Jamnudas Kimdi was one among them, Al Fairuz, and Binemeyer, Al Hashar, and Gulfar, of course. We are a very small contractor, which started at that time. And as, of course, the currency, these are all everybody knew that this currency from Sayyidi Riyal, it has changed to Omani Riyal. Earlier it was called Saidi Riyal. Yeah. Then we started, I'll tell you a little story here. When my partner, present-day partner, has to be away, I was left alone and I didn't have any money to continue the business. And I heard that we had another job in Sinau, and Mr. Mukherjee was visiting there. I got the message from then Wali, the father of the present governorate, Sumar, he sent me a message that I have to be there. And I set off from Sur to Sinau. You know, at that time, you didn't have good vehicles. There is no communication. There is no telephone. Telephone was in Matra and Muscat only. So I set off about 4 o'clock with a Bedford truck and a small pickup with me and driving with a few people around. While from Sur to Al-Kamil, there is a big mountain. You all know that because Kimji's Bania community was very active in Sur at that time. All the retail businesses were with them. And also Kimji was laying pipe for the water supply. They had the water business. They were providing the water from Bilad Sur to the Sur town. So when we went to Al-Kamil, on the big mountain, we climbed, entire loaded material has come out. So then we had to load people up to everything, back, load again, tight again, reach there from Al-Kamil to Bidia. Professor, what you said, there is total sand dunes. Even a four-wheel drive vehicles, very difficult to pass. So we went there. My vehicle got stuck. So I asked the Bedford truck, the four-wheel drive, to tow it. After some time, couple of times it happened, and finally even the Bedford truck got stuck. So we have both of our vehicles got stuck. I have no other way to go, and I have to go and meet Mr. Mukherjee and tell my matter. And I walked from, it was 1973, 4th of February. I walked and walked and walked, and I walked for 12 hours with an unknown way from Al-Kabil to Sinau. And I was only 23 years old. Nothing. I have no knowledge of the way, and I have nobody with me. I have to walk. Only thing I had to see Mr. Mukherjee. And finally I did it. I met him and I told Mr. Mukherjee, this is the situation, you have to make my payment. And he was graciously, he made an advance payment of 5,000 riyal. From there we started our business, continued our business. And also I had one of my colleagues, Mr. Abdullah, Nami, who was responsible for the Kannada Dry business. So whatever business money we get from there, that also we put it in the business to run the businesses. That time, you have to understand that to go to Sur, there is no road. Only way is to go from Matra. Evening you get into this launch, Ikra. There in the morning, next day morning, you are in Sur. That is and we tried. I tried once. We had a vehicle car. I will try it. I got stuck 3 times, and finally, that's my partner, Sheikh Salim Said, in 1972. And you can see the rope in the front to tow the vehicle, and you can see a small cup with the dates. We both got stuck, and we had no food, and we had spent overnight there and He left, then I stayed there. Next day, the help came, I left to the Sur. So these are some of the journeys. I had asked some school children to come today, so that some of the difficult time we have overcome, and to reach the present day Gulfar or Muhammad Ali or present day to develop the Oman to the present state. And although there were a lot of contractors, international contractors, there were Hochif was constructing the harbor, and JNP was doing the airport, and very few contractors were focusing on the interior part of the job. That is where we focused. There is no place in Oman where Gulfar's footprint has not reached. In many places we walked, and there is no road. We built the road, and we took the vehicle, we took the material, and we did the job. As the time passed, country developed. 1973, oil boom started. OPEC has formed. Oil, all these years, oil price was $2, less than $2. Can you imagine that? Less than $2, and the drilling costs and other costs are much more. And in 1973, the OPEC formation, the oil prices has gone up to $20, and Oman is further started developing the Oman oil production, and the first Nati well, then Fahud, Yabal, and Kanala. And to get into PDO, it was a very difficult task. It is a high threshold entry. On the civil project, we've been doing schools, we've been doing hospitals, and all the other buildings, etc., in the interior places. But to go more businesses in the oil industry. And I want to get into the oil industry, and this is the old Minal file, which was called earlier Iraq Petroleum, and was in 1972. And I tried to get into PDO, and I got a job building very big thing. You know what it is? They want to test me to build a car shed. 800 riyals. That's the contract value. I am very gladly accepted from that. 800 riyal, we have completed a single project of 800 million riyals also. From 800 riyals, we built the highest. So that was the beginning, and this is some of the old photos of, I need some water. So, those days, thank you very much. Always keep this word there all the time. Thank you, Your Excellency. Sur, yeah. No, it is in Sur, there is no electricity. There is no running water. And Razia, after marriage in 1975, was staying in a house, and in kilometers, there is no neighbors. And there is no electricity. I have made a small generator myself by picking up parts from here and there, and I only can start. And if I am late, because normally I am late to come home because I've been going around, Razia will keep we had a second-hand kerosene fridge. She will open the kerosene fridge and she get the light. Till I come and set up the generator. That was the, so that was the, and in Sur Al-Ega, there was no connectivity with the place. And I was the first person to take a vehicle to the other side. Not a Suri man. Of course, they considered I am from Sur. So first person to build on a drum, we made a barge sort of thing, and pulled out and take the vehicle to build. We had another job there. So as Gulfar story continues, we have built in the most difficult places where there is no road. Wadi bin Khalid, or it is Dimatain, or it is Lima, or it's Kumzar, or it is Bukha, or even TV. TV was, now it is too close. I will tell you one more story if I not bother you. If I'm okay, it's okay. If you are all getting entertained, I will tell you. We had a job in TV, built a clinic there at that time. I asked my partner, Mr. Mohammed Rashid, who is from Sur, do you know the way? He said, yes, of course. Up to Kuriyat, everybody knows. From Kuriyat to TV, there is no road. So we had to use some tracks. We started in our vehicle. We had 3 spare tires. After some time, well, there is 2 tracks. Where to go? So he was confused, and I knew that he don't know. That was, he got to take the right. We went to the right, we went to a dead end. After half an hour, we came back, in which we lost all 3 spare tires. So we have, there is no track, it was the stones. And it was in Ramadan time, in June month. Razia was not at home, she is away. Muhammad, you said we will walk. We will walk. Whoever, don't wait for each other, whoever reach first will get some help. So because it was Ramadan, there is no vehicle during the daytime. We walked. Whenever we sit, some bees will attack us and we will walk. Like that we continued. And by 5 o'clock something, I was so thirsty, my dress is heavy for me. We removed the dress, we removed everything, we started walking, and I wanted some water. There was nothing available. Then I said, I will do the last thing, I will pee and try to drink. And what has come out, I tried, it is just a drop of blood. That was it. There was no even urine was coming. I was completely exhausted. Then I saw a donkey. So I would run after the donkey, at least to come and bite and suck some blood. That was the stat. But even the donkey ran away from me because she was frightened. She knows that what was going to happen. And finally, I remember I fainted. I was unconscious. Muhammad Rashid, Allah Rahmahu, he got a vehicle. He's also working separately. By the time after breakfast, somebody was coming and they picked me up on the road in an unconscious state, brought me and somewhere in Dagmar into this garden where it is howl, where the small water tank is there, put some salt at the body and put me in the tank, and then I survived. And at the night, midnight, I reached home, and Razia was not there. So I told the story to Razia later. It was in 77, 78. So there are stories. So this is, I'm just trying to tell you, if there is anybody, the young man who wanted to looking for easy win. No, there is no easy win. It's a hard work, and that's why I wanted to. And there are similar stories with Tukum and in the Masandam area also. One thing I will tell you, when His Majesty Sultan Qaboos called for a job in Jabal Akhtar to build the dams for the locals to retain water for the drinking, because there was no water. They also have to drink the polluted water from the bottom and bring it. So the HM built some 45 dams in 45 different villages where there is no access for anybody except the few people staying there, and we got the job. So first thing is, my mind was, I will bring Nepalese. That's how I brought Nepal. I am the one who brought Nepalese to Oman. 500 of them, and we got some donkeys, some headload workers, Also sometimes we brought helicopter also to shift stone where there is no other way except that. So there are difficult jobs, and when we have difficult, I always led from the front. So I was always available for my people, and they have done wonders. With the PDO, I told you, which we had the first job, million real. If I am taking more time, stop. You please, somebody else raise the hand, I will stop it. Is that okay, Your Excellency? How much time I have? Thank you. First job, I got a million real job in 1980, 79-80, a million real. That was a game changer for me, and we got very much deeply involved in the works in PDO. And although that job was very difficult, but our friend, International Sanitation, I think Mr. Yusuf Nalwana, you are somewhere here, I saw, and Mr. Sudhagar, they came, and I subcontracted the job, half of the job to them, which is the technical part, and I did the civil part. That was a great success, and I could win the trust of the organization. And then we got the service contract in PDO. It was very, very difficult job. North and south, across, that is from Marmul up to Lequer, entire area was serviced by Gulfar with over 1,500 people. And we had many problems, vehicle accident, people lost their way, all these things has happened. But in 1985, Shell recognized our abilities, and they published a news flash worldwide. So that an Omani local contractor has performed this, and so that everybody can do. Yeah, the news flash, that is in 1985. It's the first by Shell and produced worldwide, not only in Oman, and that was in 1985. And 1989, we got the Sword of Honor from the British Safety Council. Another important thing you have to see, formation of the GCC in 1980. That was again, it is an important milestone. 1985 was the Oman's turn to host the GCC meeting, and Oman had not much of infrastructure. So then, from 82 onwards, building those infrastructure, Darsit, Kuram Darsit Highway, doubling the road, all the flyovers, many of this development has started between 82 and 85. Jibru was a slum area that was relocated to Al Hail. Kalbu was another slum area that was also relocated. And the architecture, the Islamic architecture was brought in. And 1985, that picture of the GCC leaders, Bustan Hotel, that was the most important. That is where the first GCC meeting, where they housed the 5 heads of state, and it was a proud moment for Oman to host that, and the hotel was one of the best in the world, and it was a great proud moment. And we also did certain projects in that area. And one thing, and then after this, little unfortunate thing, Oman, the world economy is crashed, and Oman has to devalue its currency. In 1986, Oman devalued its currency by 10%. That was the only incident where the government has intervened with the currency. Indian population was growing, lots, and Indian was the dominant expatriates. It came up to 1.3, 1.4 million, and the school population was growing. And one time, we were all under the Connexi leadership, we were all on the committee. There were 6,000 school students at some time, 87, 88, and there was no schools. Then they had to run it a 2 shift. Then I-Force said that no, we need another school. And the community was not prepared because the Gulf War started. Gulf War started, everybody said we are all have to leave, so there is no need of the second school. But I insisted, persuaded them that we should need another school. Then the challenge was thrown at me, and I have accepted, and that is how the Indian school, Gala, was established. And you know the story, the Indian school, the Gala has contributed to the educational system, setting standard, and it was a trendsetter in the Indian school system. You mentioned it was Indian, without the Indian schools, Indian community would not have thrived here. Indian community, the management or senior positions would not have come here. You know, at some time, Indian community headed almost all the companies. In the early 70s, it was a Western dominant management, and later, when it comes in 80s, Indian management took over in all the management positions, because I think I should stop. I have a lot of story, so I will stop in 5 minutes. Okay. So these are some of the pictures of His Majesty coming in the early days in 1970. Hari, you can run over the other slides. That wasn't. Yeah. Next one. Okay, on the 1990, Gulf War was still growing, and we established 2 important companies. Those days, only Western companies are allowed in the oil and gas fields. Others, we were doing the civil jobs. And the Gulf War was the first company to enter into oil and gas, where you need the hot work permit is required. There we did most of the bigger plants and stations, and we set up 2 companies. One is Arabian Industries, and one is National Drilling Services and Company. So this is National Drilling Services, the first drilling company Omani owns, and we did the world's largest single contract awarded by anybody in the world. 112 wells in Lakware, all integrated. So that means everything done in one single contract. We had our partner Foromol, the French company, which held 30%, and we were 70%, and we did that job 6 months earlier with $30 million, lesser than my immediate bidder, second bidder. The other company was Arabian Industries, which, all early days, anything fabricated, either it comes from Holland or from Singapore. So we set up this shop, and today we manufacture all bigger vessels, columns, all over the world, including in Qatar and Kuwait and all the other oil companies. Also, we started in Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Brunei, and Brunei we closed, but other countries we are continuing. And you see Qatar, the Al Bayt Stadium, built by Gulf War. And most of other big stadium, all the MEP work was done by us only. So we are still growing, and as a group, we employ the region-wise about 100,000 people, and we do a turnover of $2.5 billion every year. That is the present Gulf War. And I thank you. If it's not boring, it was a little story, but some other time I will tell you more detailed story. Thank you. God bless all of us. Yes. No, I 1 minute. Yeah? Can you, sorry, 1 minute I forgot our contribution to the education sector of Oman. When His Majesty announced the higher education participation of private sector in higher education, we started the first engineering college, and we have contributed, we have produced over 10,000 engineers to work in Oman, and we started the first medical college in 2001, which produced over 1,500. Dr. Ahmad, you are here? Yes. Yeah, okay. The Dean of the Engineering College is here. So about 1,500 doctors, medical doctors, and we have produced another 700 pharmacists, and also then we formed a national university, and we have the Maritime College, which His Excellency last week visited. I understand you are very impressed, and so that is our contribution to the Omani human resources development. We took as our responsibility, and our journey continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Ali, for narrating your inspiring journey in Oman. I now welcome Mr. Dharmin Rajendra Ved to share the history of the Ved family.
Good evening, His Excellency and friends as well. Where we stand today, we already know. Where we are going to go tomorrow, we plan for it. How we reached here is the journey that I wanted to talk about today as well. This journey that I'm going to talk about today started in the early 20th century. A young Gujarati man left from India in a boat, leaving his wife and kids at home. He then, thank you. He reached, 3 months later, he reached the port of Muscat, and eager to start his job, he went and met his new boss. And he was starting the job of a cook in another Gujarati family. A few years later, he decided to go to his boss and ask for a loan of 200 rupees to start a new business. The year is 1904, and the man that I'm talking about, who took a job, the cook, is my great-great-grandfather, Mr. Tharya Ved. He took this money to start the grocery business for his son, which is Mr. Lakshmidas Tharya Ved. This is where the journey began, and this is how the journey began. In 1904, now 120 years ago, this gentleman on the right here is Mr. Lakshmidas Tharya Ved, who was fondly known as Lakhu by his Omani friends. And the name continues even today in Oman and the rest of the region as well. Right here in this picture, you can actually see Mr. Mullah Suleiman. He worked with Mr. Lakshmidas Tharya for over 40 years, up until 1973 when he retired. Mr. Lakhu was very entrepreneurial, right? When he started, it was a grocery store. And this grocery store quickly turned into a general merchandise store when he saw an opportunity in the market to do opportunity in the market to sell different items. And he started this, he converted the grocery into a general merchandise store in the year 1932. By the year 1936, he actually got even more excited about all the opportunities that he could see in the market. And he saw that there was a high demand for textiles in the market, and he started to import textiles into the region as well. So the business went from starting off as a grocery store and then moving into a general merchandise store, and then from there onwards moving into the textile store as well. So he kept expanding the categories in which he was operating as well. Then in 1942 came the change of guard. This is when Mr. Lakshmidas Tharia, he passed on his business to his only son, which is Mr. Meghji Ved, with my grandfather, who came into the business. He, as was mentioned earlier as well, actually studied in Oman in an Arabic school here. And honestly, it was also very surprising for me to see that, Mr. Lakshmidas, he actually made a will in those days. In 1942, I don't know if it was actually common, but he actually made a will, and we have a copy of the will right here on the right, where he, gave everything that he had to his son, Mr. Meghji, who was fondly known as Magan in the market as well. My grandfather, started to build this house, in 1915. And this house, by the way, is a 5-generation house. Not only did they all live in it, I actually was brought up in the same house as well. So it's gone over many, many multi-generations. This house, by the way, when first built, was on the beach in Matra. And when my grandfather used to do his hisab at the end of the night, he used to sit on the roof, because that's where the cool breeze used to come, because there was no electricity for them to have ACs at that time. And he used to sleep on the rooftops and be able to enjoy the cool breeze from the sea. This house, by the way, was also purchased by him in times when he was still an Indian. In those days, it was allowed to buy, and the first receipt, or the first title deed, basically was issued on the name of Lakhu Tharia Banya, right? On that name, they issued that title deed as well. The other interesting thing about this house was that in the years that came by, what ended up happening was there weren't enough even Maharaj or the Pandits basically to do Diwali pujas. So, we ended up hosting the Diwali pujas in the house, and that tradition continued for over 50 years in the same house, where on the same rooftop, where they used to sit and do their hisab and fan themselves and sleep there at night, was a place that became where many community members used to come, community families used to come and celebrate the Diwali puja together as well. So those are really interesting times. And by the way, like I said, right, I was being brought up in the same house as well. It still continues to exist, and we still continue to do. However, the house that used to be on the beach, with the growth of Oman, has now gone behind in the city, because so much development has happened. Roads, Corniche, all of that got developed around it as well. Of course, by the time 1950s came in, he continued to see an opportunity, right? Saying, hey, there is an opportunity in Oman. There's constant growth happening everywhere. And that's why he started to go in different parts of Oman, all the way from Muscat till Salalah as well. A very interesting story that I would like to actually tell everybody, I'm sure most of you know, was around this time when there was so much growth happening. Planes, as Mr. Muhammad Ali was also saying, planes started to come in, and I've been told that there was only one immigration officer, right, who basically went from the port side, stamped everybody's passport as they came in, and then he's the same one who went to the airport and continued stamping everybody's passport as they came in as well. By the way, I was also told he's the same man who was also the driving instructor, and he also took the test at the same time as well. And he never drove himself, right? So I'm not sure how the driving was at that time, but things were very efficient, let's put it that way, at that time, right? As time continued to progress, they saw this opportunity of just so much happening around the country. However, there was a need for many, many different products, right? So they decided to start selling various products across the country, across the region, right? You know, whether it was in Sur, Salala, Nizwa, or any other areas, and they started to sell various different products. Basically, this included everything from like, you know, dal to jadu, right, and everything in the middle as well, right? And he decided that, you know, he would do it just as a absolute nominal commission of 2%. But he was a man of his ethics as well. So he's like, if you're buying for your home, it's 0 commission as well, right? So if it's for self-consumption, you know, he would actually sell everything on 0 commission as well, right? This, by the way, really helped him develop a distribution network, right? You know, which was across the country. And this will be useful as we see in the coming slides as well. So it went from grocery store, general merchandise, textile, and then into finance as well. You know, very quickly, by the time 1957 came in, he saw, like, listen, there was foreign trade, foreign businesses, a lot of people coming and working here, and he saw that there was a need to have a money exchange business as well, right? And this, by the way, came in because of the network and growth in business that was happening. He decided to open the first money exchange business. I would like to say that in 1957, there was no central bank of Oman either. So, you know, the businesses, when they were starting, even the regulatory authorities did not exist at that time to govern the businesses as well. And then started the whole, in terms of the different types of business. Here was the next one. In 1958, there was a new coin that was established in Oman, and the government needed a way to distribute the coin. And we, being in the money exchange business and having the network of distribution across the region, were one of the partners that they actually gave the coins to distribute it across the whole region and the whole country as well. Here is the first store. By the way, the same store that used to be the grocery store that became the general merchandise store also then became the money exchange store. And that store still exists till today. This is in Matra, the one on the left, which is there, and the one in the middle is the office that used to be there upstairs. By the time between 1964 and the 80s, you know, the next generation of families started to come in as well, and there was another change of guard, right? You know, so all the way till my grandfather, they all had one son, but then my grandfather decided to have, you know, a few kids, right? And he had 4 sons. He had a few daughters as well, but here are the 4 sons who joined the business at different times as well, right? All the way between 1964 and 1980 as well. Of course, as they were all coming in, each one was just as excited about growing various businesses and trying to do different businesses, different geographies as well. And the early 70s was the time when, you know, everybody heard about Dubai, and there was a lot of noise going around there. And one of the brothers decided to move to Dubai and started the exchange business in Dubai as well. Again, just for reference perspective, when the money exchange in Dubai started, there was no regulatory authority. There was no central bank of UAE as well, right? So all of these have started even before the authorities came into play. Very quickly, it also moved into different businesses, from textiles to the raiment store from India that was brought in, to trends. On the right there in the picture is Mr. Gautam Singhania coming in to open the store as well. Of course, Anil Uncle was there for the opening as well. But what was interesting to just see is opportunity and then action, opportunity and action, right? So as you saw, hey, there's a need for, you know, the kanduras in the market, you know, there's an opportunity to grow, let's get the right products, right? They went and tied up with various people from China to Thailand to everywhere else to open these businesses. This is the year 1976. That's, you know, our Prime Minister, the Indian Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi in the middle, and the one in dhoti, joining his hands is my grandfather, Mr. Meghji. And along with him on the right is also Mr. Kimji right there as well, you know, welcoming the Indian Prime Minister to Oman as well, a long time ago. You know, the group continued to expand. various different businesses came in. You could see that there was demand for anything and everything, and they kept growing, right? Whether it was tea, with Lipton tea that was there for many, many years, distributing that across the country. As I was mentioning earlier, the distribution network that was built in the beginning continued to help and support the business for many, many years after that as well. So there were various businesses from Britannia to tea, to saffron, to even nuts as well that was being distributed across the country. Meetings with various leaders, of course, His Highness, where they were meeting him during, the Eid meetings as well. Sorry, His Majesty, meeting him. In the middle there it was a chief minister from Gujarat at that time, Mr. Narendra Modi, who was visiting Oman, and they had a chance to meet him as well. Of course, now he's the Prime Minister of the country. So it's been a very, very interesting journey. All of them always decide to visit and pass by Oman, and the business community is always more than keen to meet everyone. There was a change in guard again. The next generation comes in. Various fathers have multiple kids, and the family tree continues to grow. Everyone is in different locations, between the region itself, but everybody is in various different locations now. Mr. Nilesh decided to also grow further, through the whole group. Mr. Tushar lives in India. I manage a fashion company, and Deep is also in the exchange business as well. Various different things happening across the sector since the time we have grown. So it's gone from being the 200 rupees that was borrowed from the boss, in early 20th century, is now reaped into all of these different businesses over the last 120 years. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dharman. Now we will have a video presentation by Mr. Kiran Ashar, Pravasya Bharatiya Samman awardee, as he enlightens us on the history of the Hindu temples in Oman.
Kachchi Bhatia merchants, often referred to as Baniyas, have played a significant role in the trade and commerce of Oman for centuries. Being a key port city on the Arabian Sea, Muscat has attracted traders from various parts of the world, including Gujarat. They were known for their expertise in trading textiles, spices, pearls, dates, and other goods between India and the Middle East. Their entrepreneurial spirit, business acumen, and strong network of family and community ties contributed to their success in Muscat's bustling marketplaces. In Oman, they have also played a significant role in shaping the city's economic landscape and cultural diversity.
When we talk about maritime connections, we also talk about the flow of ideas, the flow of beliefs. And in this context, we have to acknowledge the special status of Hinduism in Oman. The oldest documented temples were found in the port city of Qalhat within the domains of the Kingdom of Hormuz. These temples date back to the 16th century. Of particular importance is the role played by the Indian University in Muscat and Matrah in the liberation of Oman's capital from the Hispano-Portuguese invasion, which lasted for about 150 years. In 1650, the leading merchant agent of the Portuguese commander in Muscat has passed vital information to the Omani Imam Sultan bin Saif al-Ya'rubi, enabling the Omanis to liberate Muscat and Matrah. As a result of that, the Imams gave permission for the construction of Hindu temples in Muscat, as well as exempting the Hindu community from levy taxes or jizya, which is usually imposed upon religious minorities. This unique relationship and trust continues to this day through the reign of the Abu Sa'id dynasty, where we have temples, both ancient and modern, in Muscat.
Hindu temples have been an integral part of the Kutchi community's religious and cultural life in Muscat since centuries. Despite being a minority religious group in Oman, due to the benevolent nature of the royal family, the community has built and maintained several temples where they gather for religious ceremonies, festivals, and community events. Earliest mention of a temple in Oman is by S.B. Miles. He reported the ruins of the Hindu temple at Kalhat, the principal Omani port of the 15th century. Let us listen further what Dr. Jamal Al-Musawi, Secretary General, the National Museum, Sultanate of Oman, says.
The object that we see here is a curved slab in the shape of a lotus flower, which was discovered in Kalhat.
Stories of priests and devotees carrying sacred idols or artifacts during times of migration or displacement are not uncommon in Hindu mythology and cultural lore. One possible narrative could involve a devoted priest from Basra who, faced with adversity or persecution, embarked on a journey with the idol of Govindaraji to seek refuge in Muscat. Along the way, the priest encountered various challenges, obstacles, but remained steadfast in his devotion and commitment to preserving the sanctity of the deity. Despite the hardships encountered during the journey, the priest's unwavering faith and determination ultimately led to the safe arrival of the idol in the new destination. Upon reaching Muscat, the priest and the local community worked together to establish a new temple dedicated to Lord Krishna, where the idol was enshrined and worshipped with the reverence and devotion. While such stories may lack historical documentation, they serve as powerful reminders of the enduring faith and resilience of devotees in safeguarding their religious traditions and cultural heritage, even in the face of adversity. They also highlight the deep spiritual connection between individuals, communities, and sacred objects within the Hindu tradition. Today, these temples serve as a spiritual and cultural center for the Indian community. Overall, the presence of Kutchi merchants and Hindu temples in Muscat reflects the rich cultural diversity and historical ties between India and Oman. Their contribution to trade, commerce, and religious life have left an indelible mark on the city's identity and heritage. J. E. Patterson, in his book Historical Muscat, writes, the Hindus of Muscat primarily lived in either Al-Walja or Al-Banyan quarters, both of which are located inside the old walls. Two temples existed in that area, known generally as Beit al-Pir and Mabad al-Banyan. Mabad in Arabic means worship. Another temple still exists in Al-Hawash quarters outside the walls. This temple is believed to have existed on the site for about 150 years, but the present temple, Bodhiswar, was recently rebuilt. Fourth temple, located near the Muscat end of the road over the bypass to Riyam, was re-established post-1970 redevelopment. When we talk about temples of Muscat, Oman, how can we not talk about the Mahajan community of Muscat, who serve the needs and interests of the Hindu community residing in Muscat and the surrounding areas. The Baniya Mahajan community plays a vital role in promoting Hindu culture, tradition and values among its members while fostering the sense of unity and solidarity within the community. The activity include religious ceremonies and festivals, social and cultural events, educational and outreach programs, advocacy and representation, support of newcomers and expatriates. By the early 20th century, Muscat had 6 temples. During the early years of Oman's Renaissance, following the assumption of power in 1970 by His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, most of the old temples in Muscat were moved to a new temple complex in Daset, and today the community is served by 2 temples. In late 1960s, the story goes that the Mansukh Maharaj, who was looking after the temple, decided to retire and go, and took the idol with him, which was not really liked by the community at that time, and they wanted him to prevent this doing so. And we were without that idol for a long time. We realized that the idol is with him, he has taken it, and we tried to recover from him. And we did that in our good faith and brought the idol back, and we re-established again in the temple. By the 18th century, the teachings of Sri Vallabhacharya ji came into the system, and people realized that this is an important person in the religion. So, community built a second temple in Pushti Margi Haveli, known as in Arabic as Mabad al-Banyan, dedicated to Lord Balakrishna, which is the present idol that we have in our temple. It was also located near the palace. It was demolished in 1978, and then it was re-established in Daset area. Muscat's third temple was the Kalka temple, located on the Muscat side of the bypass to Riyam. British records from 1895 also mention 2 other temples in Muscat. The 6th temple is a Shaivite temple which included a lingam representing Lord Shiva, faced by Nandi and the turtle, as well as small shrine to Hanuman. The temple complex also consisted of 2 wells, which was used by people to gather there, have a bath there, wash their clothes, and come there and enjoy the gossiping. It was a good point of getting together. Over a period of time, temple deteriorated, and the community thought of making a new temple there. And this is our date to bring a new lingam and create a new temple altogether. And this was created, which you see now these days. So decision was made at that time again that we reinstate the old lingam in the same temple with respect, which was done. And if you see today a small temple before as soon as you enter, under the title of Adi Botishwar, which has been the old lingam, which has been centuries old, and we brought that respect back the same manner with proper pran pratishtha, proper rituals, and we are glad that everything was done as it should have been done, and now we are enjoying the fruits of the blessings of the Lord in our own society. Mindful of the Indian community's religious needs and acknowledging the loss of 3 temples due to development of Muscat, His Majesty Sultan Qaboos bin Said Al Said donated property in Daset to the Mahajan for a new temple complex, which houses 4 separate shrines presently that we see. In addition to their temples, the Banyans had a cremation which was somewhere near Kalbu behind the mountains where the cremation was taking place. It was very difficult to go there through boats to give rituals to their dead bodies. Recently, the government also realized this and we were given a beautiful land in Sohar where present crematoriums exist, where we have got the electric system as well as the traditional sandalwood burning system for the bodies. The facility is made available to any religious community that wishes to cremate its members. Having seen what we have just been presenting to you, one would definitely feel that had the government, the local ruler family and the people of Oman, our brothers, Omani citizens, wouldn't have been so tolerant and so kind and so benevolent, I think the temples would not have existed, other facilities may not have existed. So we are very, very grateful to the authorities and to keep us united, keep us happy, keep us comfortable and able to perform our duties in a land of adoption that we are in. A lot of salute to them, and we hope that the relationship between two countries, two communities, and we'll be able to do a good work for the society, for the community and for the city. The families who played an active role in the establishing of Bhajan Bodhi are
Your Excellencies, the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for giving me this responsibility of presenting the history of temples. It's going to be very long, but we have to just summarize and do it in the time given to us. If you want to talk about it, you can go number of hours, days to talk about temples in Oman, and you can continue for a long time. Now, the latest document that was added, it was just came to our hand yesterday evening or the afternoon, which is saying that how the consul then was approached for the mistreatment of the plan of the Pandit that time to sell some properties of temple to the local people. And when we requested His Majesty Sultan Said bin Taimur, said, don't worry, we will take care of it. Nobody will be able to do that. It really shows the relationship that we had at that time, between the community, between the trust of the government and the support of the ruler authority to make sure that the community remains happy, contented, and satisfactory, and happily they can live the relationship can continue to do that. In general, I would like to thank the Embassy of India, and in particular the Ambassador Sri Amit Narangji, for establishing and doing this sort of active project to summarize everything, have the series of lecture. And I think I must really applaud the embassy as well as the ambassador for giving this particular opportunity to all of us. This will definitely give us keep some records. And another project coming up of that is the archives. And I think my request to all of you, including myself, will be that, as he requested, dig out something from our own past records, the sanduks, the bags, trunks, whatever you can call it, and let's make this entire episode of two projects that His Excellency is continuing or want to do it. I think nobody else has done it, and he won't make to share that our respect should remain in this country. So our full support should be there, and please help us out, help the embassy out, help the ambassador out to make sure that we support and we make this, particularly both these projects, a successful one, including the book that we're going to launch very soon. So I think let's make a pledge. We will do it. We will support you, sir, and we can do it. There's no other reason why we should not do it. Thank you very much. That's what I.
Thank you, Kiran Bhai, for the wonderful video and the kind words. As we all know, Gujarat is famous for its diverse culture, delicious cuisine, and cultural and colorful festivals. We now have the students of Indian School Wadi Kabir, Cambridge, presenting before you a cultural dance of Gujarat, Shu Vache Mara Gujaratini.
ગમતી મોજ છે ને પાછી રોજ છે સૌને ઘેલો લગાવે ધનગનતી તાનમાં ઝૂમીને શાનમાં નાચે ને સૌને નચાવે મનગમતી મોજ છે ને પાછી રોજ છે સૌને ઘેલો લગાવે ધનગનતી તાનમાં ઝૂમીને શાનમાં નાચે ને સૌને નચાવે અહીં ભીની ભીની લાગણી રે અહીં ઝીણી ઝીણી
Thank you, children, for the wonderful and colorful performance. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude the final chapter of our landmark Mandvi to Muscat series. I thank everyone who has been a part of this amazing and enlightening journey. I extend my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you who joined us this evening. Thank you and good night.